Hey everyone, it's B, and you're listening to another episode of In Your Feelings, a podcast by Thought Catalog and I that dives into the very real and very human emotions we all feel as we navigate the messy, beautiful journey that is life. And just before we get started, I wanted to let you know that this episode is actually in collaboration with Bumble. For those of you who may not be aware, Bumble is a dating app. And not only does it give you the space to explore meaningful romantic connections, it also has options for you to seek out friendship and work opportunities, which further plays into this mission of simply bringing us closer together in a world that sometimes fails to do so. I'm really excited because the idea for this episode actually came from all of you. Recently, I did a campaign with Bumble on Instagram, and I asked this audience what you needed to hear, and what you needed advice on is you were navigating this really confusing time in life. I received so many responses, and when I finally answered some of your questions, I got so many beautiful replies from people who asked me to elaborate on the advice I gave for those who are trying to move on in isolation, for those who might be dealing with heartbreak during this time. So naturally, Bumble and I decided to make it an episode. They were super supportive of the concept and really wanted me to dive into the advice and to just use this space to encourage all of you if you're feeling overwhelmed within your healing. So within that, I wrote out a few reminders, as I always do on this podcast, and we're going to dive into those now, and I really hope they help. So firstly, I just need you to know how valid your feelings are right now. This is a really difficult position to be in. It is okay if you're finding this hard. Breakups are hard. They are already so extremely difficult to navigate. They can leave us feeling lonely, imbalanced, and nostalgic in even the most perfect circumstances. And usually we have the option to explore forms of healing that kind of take us out of our thoughts and help us to self-regulate our emotions and remind us that there is hope and bring us into our experiences. We have the option to do these things that just give us a break from our minds. We can go out with friends. We can go look at beautiful art. We can take up external hobbies. We don't have to be alone with ourselves. There's no boundary to our healing. And while I'm always the person, as all of you know, who tries to encourage really diving into your feelings and really acknowledging them and allowing yourself to feel them and really sitting with them so that they can no longer control you, I always say a wound cannot heal if you don't acknowledge it. It just gets worse. And the minute you acknowledge it and the minute you take the steps towards healing it, that's when it starts to get better. But sometimes when it comes to breakups and sometimes when it comes to overthinking and feeling almost trapped within a feeling, it is really important to take a moment away from them, just to clear your head, just to find some calm. And so in isolation, a lot of our capacity to do that we've been primed to leap towards has been taken away from us. Not only are we dealing with the normal loneliness and grittiness of a breakup, but we're also dealing with the anxiety and the imposed loneliness of a global pandemic. These two things together can really weigh heavily on a human soul. It can make it difficult to relax because of all of that underlying anxiety. It can truly make you spiral. So don't vilify yourself. Be gentle with yourself if you're finding this moment in your life really difficult, because it is difficult. There is no guideline for this. So please, I will say it again and again and again and again. Just be gentle with your healing. Be patient with your heart. I get so passionate when I talk about this because healing is truly never linear. And in this situation, a lot of change is occurring in the world. So not only are you grieving the loss of a human being who means so much to you, who made you feel so deeply, but you're also dealing with the loss of your normalcy, with the loss of your control and your routine. And it all feels very imposed and it all feels very unfair. And that's making people who aren't even dealing with the heaviness of a breakup feel very overwhelmed. I think it's important to remind yourself that this is so layered and so messy, and you're trying your best. I don't want any of you to feel bad for not being able to get over it in a certain amount of time, or for having a hard day. Show yourself some compassion, please. Please, it's so important to do that, even if it's just telling yourself that you are healing each and every morning, even on the days you may not believe it, even if it's just affirming within yourself that you are on a journey and that you are trying your best, even if it's the smallest, tiniest thing like that, that is so, so special and so valid. And that brings me to my next reminder. It's okay to miss them. As with any breakup, I need you to understand that it is okay to miss this person. You don't need to heal yourself in record time, because the people who have touched us the deepest, the people who showed us their souls, who we created memories with and experienced beautiful moments with, those people never really leave us. We remember them in the songs and in the inside jokes and in all of the ways they made us feel. Remind yourself that this is actually beautiful, that at a point in time you got to experience something moving and special with another human being, that you know what it feels like to love deeply, that you have someone worth missing. But also remember that you're missing the highlights. You're leaping towards that nostalgia because that feels sunny and beautiful, especially during a time when you're trying to combat all of the heavy news and all of the uncertainty in the world around you. Right now, more than ever, it's easy to grip at what felt nice, what felt easy, and to not want to deal with the emotions surrounding what was wrong and what wasn't working in the relationship. But this isolation is truly a chance for you to feel through your emotions, to not numb them or sweep them under the rug. This isolation is giving you the chance to confront your past relationship, to take inventory of why it ended, to be honest with yourself. It isn't going to be easy. It's going to be harder than it would be in any normal world. But it's still important to remind yourself of the things that eventually led you here. It's important to make that list in your mind. And I say it's so important. It's probably one of the most important things, because a breakup, especially in isolation, is such a catalyst for a really deep kind of growth. And I feel like that is what we are all feeling right now. We are all confronting so many parts of ourselves that we have kept hidden for so long. We're learning more and more about our souls because we are truly not able to dismiss these parts any longer, these patterns or these emotions. This isolation is truly bringing up so much. But I really do believe that it's within all of this growth and all of this heavy learning that we get to decide how we want to feel and how we want to love and how we want to stand up for ourselves and our hearts, and how we want our love to change when all of this is over. So make the list of what wasn't working and then ask yourself, what makes your heart happy? Truly, what wasn't working in your last relationship? How do you want someone to make you feel? How do you want someone to show up for you? What does your perfect Sunday morning look like with your forever person? What do you envision for your future? What kind of love and life do you want to dedicate yourself to living? And when you do have an idea of all of that, remind yourself that you deserve it and that it's truly out there. And I know how difficult that can be to believe in, because isolation truly does have a tendency to make us feel like we are failing or that things are never going to be the same. A breakup in isolation, especially, can make us think that we're never going to find the person who quickly becomes our favorite thing, that we will never have the opportunity to dive into the heart of another soul. And when you're feeling that way, I want you to remind yourself that this is truly temporary. This healing, this circumstance, this loneliness, it really is. Like, as rationally as I can express that, it truly is. You have survived this kind of heartbreak before. And while this is the first time you're doing it in this way, you're strong enough to heal from this as well, as slowly as you need to. Take your time. Take time for your heart. Be gentle with yourself. But I also really want to encourage you to remind your heart and your mind and your soul that there are beautiful human beings out there. And sometimes it really does take one beautiful conversation with someone new to remind yourself that there are those out there who exist within the idea of what you've created for your future, within the idea of what you genuinely do want to find within another person. And this brings me to my next point, but I do just want to preface it with moving on is work that is almost never done, and I have found within meeting other people where I am starting to be reminded that my heart is healing and that I am opening myself up to the possibilities of something new. And I mean, I know for myself, I never thought I was going to meet the person who I ended up being in a 4-year relationship with. I genuinely never thought it was going to happen the way it happened, but it did. I was so unbelievably surprised by them in the most beautiful way. But I really did set myself up for that kind of discovery. I opened myself up to the possibility, even though my heart, I wouldn't necessarily say was, 100% ready, because I don't think we're ever really ready. I don't think, we can ever anticipate finding someone who genuinely stirs something within ourselves. All we can do is show up for that possibility. And that's why this partnership with Bumble on this episode and within this topic was so unbelievably aligned for me, and why I thought it would fit really well, because meeting other people can actually be really helpful when you're healing, and connecting in the middle of such an isolated, heavy period can add a little bit of light into all of that dark, can remind you that there are things to look forward to, can remind you that you can have beautiful conversations with people, that there are people out there who are going to make you smile or laugh, even in the midst of all of your healing. And I know that it may feel like dating in an isolated period of time is silly, or like it doesn't actually make sense. But for someone who is navigating their healing, for someone who is just trying to be tender and gentle with their hearts, it's actually an incredible way to test the water, to slowly introduce yourself to new connections and to truly figure out what ignites you. And that's why apps like Bumble make this process a little easier when you're healing, because you do have the ability to set your own pace, and you do have the ability to decide on your own terms how you want to start opening your heart to new people. And that looks like whatever you want it to look like. Whether that's simply waking up one day and taking the step to see if it's even something you can download, if the app is even something you can genuinely consider signing up for, or if it's actually signing up for the app and sending the first message, or asking to video chat with the person who has intrigued you. There are so many layers and steps and opportunities for you to do this at a rate and on a level that you are comfortable with. There's absolutely no pressure. And right now, we need one another. We need to connect with one another. If you're dealing especially with a breakup, if you're dealing with loneliness and feeling misunderstood and really missing your past, I would really encourage you to start setting yourself up to believe in your future, to really start reminding yourself that you have the capacity to laugh with someone, that you have the capacity to be inspired by someone, and that you have the capacity to just have a lovely conversation with another human being because we need it now more than ever. However, I do understand that some of you may genuinely not feel like you can take that step yet. But I do also want to let you know that you don't have to do this alone. If you feel like you don't have anyone to talk to, if you genuinely are isolated and missing connection and it's making you leap towards your past, I would really encourage you to also remind yourself that apps like Bumble give you the opportunity to create connections that are platonic. Bumble BFF can introduce you to others who are dealing with the same thing you're dealing with, others who become quick friends and help you to feel less lonely and nostalgic in your healing. Because let me be completely honest with you. When I posted my Instagram story relative to this topic, talking about all the advice I had for those who are dealing with breakups in this time, I had an unbelievable amount of people respond to me in my direct messages telling me that it was nice to be reminded that other people were going through the same kind of healing journey they were going through, that other people were finding it really difficult to navigate. But obviously, if you don't get DMs like that, or if you're not putting that vulnerability out into the world, you might not have those reminders in your life. And so I'm here to tell you that in isolation, you might feel like you're dealing with this alone, but you don't have to deal with it alone. And if you feel like there are people in your life who may not completely understand where you're coming from right now, maybe some of your friends don't understand how difficult this is for you because they're not personally dealing with it. Maybe you feel a little disconnected from the people that you do talk to every day and you just want to dive into conversation with someone who might get it and comprehend it on a level that is very relative, that almost mirrors yours. I want to tell you that those people are out there. They really are. Those people exist. There are a lot of people in this world right now who are navigating heartbreak within this isolation, and they want to connect. And they want to be reminded that it's going to be okay. And so while I will post everything on Instagram for all of you and try to encourage you and motivate you as much as possible within my words, I also know how important it is and how incredible it can be to connect with a human being who says, yeah, today was really hard. I'm having a really difficult time moving on from my ex. I'm having a really difficult time dealing with heartbreak and isolation, and I know exactly where you're coming from. It can be really nice to hear that. And so I wouldn't vilify downloading something like Bumble. There are 7 million people on the app alone, and not all of them are looking for this romantic connection. Some people are genuinely just looking for connection. And genuinely looking for friendship and someone who is like-minded or someone who might be dealing with the same thing. So if you are feeling lonely, if you truly are perpetuating this concept in your mind that you aren't understood right now, or that no one knows where you're coming from, or that you have absolutely no clue how to navigate your feeling, there are a lot of really incredible human beings out there who can be foundational for you at this moment in time and who can be really beautiful additions to your life. And that brings me to my next point. I know what it is like to be dealing with a breakup. And I know that in a normal world where you have the ability to self-regulate your emotions and you have the ability to have your friends hug all of your broken pieces back together, I know that even within that, there's this feeling of maybe questioning yourself, questioning your worth. Breakups can really disillusion you. They can really burrow into the soul of you and bring out your insecurities and your projections and all of the things that make you convince yourself that you aren't worthy of finding beautiful things, that you aren't worthy of experiencing someone new or opening yourself up to connections. And in isolation, I feel like those thoughts can become perpetuated. I know that they can become perpetuated when you hide yourself away from the world and when you can't connect in the ways that we have been so primed to connect in. It can be really easy to convince yourself that you were too much, or that you cared too deeply, or that you felt too hard, or anything along those lines. All of this gets amplified because you are so alone with those thoughts. And so if this is what you're dealing with right now, if this is the part of the healing journey that you are on where you genuinely do want to pursue new connections, where you genuinely want to believe that you are worthy of beautiful, incredible things in life, as we all are, but you aren't feeling confident in that, I need you to understand that anything in your life that is meant to be there is going to be there. The biggest way that I fostered confidence in myself was within this understanding that I was here to make myself happy on my own terms. You do not have to change yourself in order to be valued by someone. You do not have to change yourself to be worthy of someone. You just have to be who you are. And I think that's like quite literally the most important thing I will say this whole podcast. You just have to leap in the direction of what inspires you. You just have to show up as authentically as you possibly can and put yourself out there. And whatever that looks like to you, I need you to do it. I need you to do it even if you're scared. Even if it's terrifying for you, send the first message on Bumble. Reach out to someone who ignites something within you. Be bold in standing up for your heart and who you are, even when it feels risky and scary. The right things are going to meet you there. The right things are going to cherish that honesty. You will never lose the people or the things that are for you by being who you are. So be yourself, unapologetically. Fill your life with the people who meet you there, because you are so worthy of those connections. You are so unbelievably worthy of meeting those people. There are so many human beings who you have the capacity to talk to and to dive into and to crash your heart into that would be so unbelievably lucky to have you in their lives. Please, even on the days you do not fully believe that, even on the days where your hope feels a little haunted or the dark is cracking within you, I need you to do one thing, and that is to remind yourself that as you are, as you show up in the world, no matter how healed or broken or whatever you feel, you are worthy of beautiful things. And I know that isolation can be making you feel like you are going to be alone forever. But I am telling you right now, you are not going to be alone forever. One day you are going to meet someone who is going to be so soft and so gentle with your heart. You are going to be so glad that you put yourself out there. You are going to be so glad that you didn't give up on your capacity to feel and your ability to love and your ability to find someone who genuinely loved you the way that you always dreamed of being loved. One day you are going to meet someone who makes you realize why it didn't work out with the person you are currently moving on from, why it never manifested into your future. You are going to have that clarity and that closure, and you are going to be so damn happy that you stood up for that and that you kept believing in it. And I know I just went off a bit, but that last point was one of the most important points I wanted to make in this whole podcast. Connection is out there and it's waiting to be discovered. And you have to be gentle with your heart and you have to go at your own pace. But please don't close yourself off to all of the people who are going to show you so many beautiful things in this world. because you cannot close yourself off to all of those dark and scary vulnerabilities without also closing yourself off to the beauty that is just waiting to unfold within your life. And that's the end of my reminders. And that's the end of this little rant that I get so passionate about when I talk to all of you about moving on and about healing. And I'm glad that I could have brought an episode forth for you that helps you to navigate this space in a really messy and difficult and isolated time. I hope that these reminders helped, and I hope that they encouraged you to keep being patient with yourself as you heal, and to keep believing in your healing, but to also believe in connection, and to also believe in the fact that there is so much waiting for you on the other side of this. And there is so much that you can do within this to remind yourself that you aren't alone. And on that note, if you are feeling really encouraged to pursue new connections and to remind yourself that great people exist, both romantically and platonically, people who are going through the same things or who want the same things, I am going to leave a little download link for Bumble in the description for you to use whenever you're feeling inspired to use it. I just want to say thank you so much for being here today with me. I know that this time is really difficult, and I hope this brought a little light into your life. And I just want to remind you to stay home and to stay safe and to check on your strong friends. But most importantly, I just want to remind you that everything's going to be okay and that we're all going to get through this together.